Let's talk about Michigan Army traveling to Michigan. We talked off the air last week, and I told you how tough this was going to be for Michigan because last year, Oklahoma, my favorite team, had to go to a couple of overtimes just to beat them. So I knew Michigan was going to have a problem with this offense. You can't prepare for this offense in 1 week. I mean, Army doesn't have one player that could start for Michigan, and yet they took them to double overtime.
Right, and Army ran the ball over 60 times.
That's what they do.
And they sacked, gave up, and they were able to get 4 sacks on Michigan. But, man, Michigan, last 2 games has been kind of iffy. I mean, when they played against Middle Tennessee, 21-40, and I was watching this Army game, and I'm thinking, they have a good odds of losing, that game. And that was just with really bad quarterbacking.
Well, Shea Patterson. But also the game, to me, was just marred by penalties and turnovers. I mean, each team had 3 turnovers. Army had 8 penalties for 78 yards. Michigan had 9 penalties for 58. I mean, you're doing that. You're constantly behind the chains. You're in these long yardage situations trying to get a first down. But, yeah, it was just that Army team is just so hard to prepare for. Pretty much all these armed forces are. But this was just – and it was never going to look pretty. And you know what? Just getting out of there with a victory, because you have to be so disciplined to play against that Army offense, to each man be responsible for their gap. And there's a tendency to want to chase the ball, and as soon as you do, boy, they cut back where you were supposed to be, and there's a hole. I mean, Army, they ran the ball almost every play. They threw 4 passes the whole game. One of them was in overtime.
Right.
And, I mean, they kept clicking, 3.3 yards a carry. Boom, boom, boom. Boy, you do that. They won the time of possession, but only by like 3 minutes. But it was a hard-fought game, and I know Michigan fans are just – they want to say bad things probably about their team, but they do. This is what Army does to these big name programs they play every year.
And the thing is, Michigan is off this week, but they have Wisconsin next week. And the thing is, they have a new offensive coordinator that needs to work more with the offense because those 2 games, if I was a Michigan fan, I'd be kind of really concerned. And Wisconsin, not a team to sneeze about. Wisconsin,
they are for real.
Yes,
man. They are putting up some points, and they are big and physical, and they play big boy football.
And if the team that showed up against Army goes against Wisconsin will run through them. Yeah, and it'll just be
Wisconsin plays big boy football, but yeah, Michigan. They were my preseason.
I had them number 6 on my poll.
Yeah, and I think what did I have them bad boys? I had Michigan at – where did I have them? I had them 5.
Yeah, and –
they dropped after this in the AP poll.
Yeah, and what are they now in the AP poll ranked at?
They got them
10. So they lost 3 spots because of that game. And like I said, they're off this weekend. They go they play Wisconsin. That will be a good game to see when the Michigan team will stand up.
They got 2 weeks to prepare, so they better pay attention and get on it.
So, what other game have you thinking about and you want to talk about today?
Yeah, I want to talk about LSU's little trip down to Austin this past weekend. Boy, that was a big shootout there. LSU beating Texas 45-38. I mean, they pretty much sealed it with that 61-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson with 2:27 left in the game. That pretty much did it. But close game, back and forth. A lot of cramping by LSU players. Texas is a tempo offense, and there was some. Their fans were booing the LSU players for cramping. Because Texas was actually, I think they had 85 plays, and LSU only had 68 on offense. So, Texas, a tempo air raid where they run that tempo, and these guys will start cramping up and slowing the teams down, stopping their momentum. That's been a tactic that's been used against Oklahoma and other teams that were prolific at running that system. So,
I mean, they came in focused. I mean, they knew it was going to be a hostile environment. I mean, everyone was watching the game. ESPN Game Day was there.
It was the game.
actors were there. I mean, I saw, everyone was full throttle. That was going to be a great game, and it led up to it, but just Longhorns came up short. This week, Texas Longhorns go play against Rice, so kind of like a redemption kind of game, maybe bounce back from
This game, man, both quarterbacks were superb. Barrow was 31 of 39 for 471 yards and 4 touchdowns. Ellinger was 31 of 47 for 401 yards and 4 touchdowns. And, oh, by the way, Ellinger was the leading rusher for Texas. I mean, just a superb game, all the way around for this kid. I mean, he is a gamer. He's tough.
And, that game, I know where I was at, everyone was watching that game and hooting and hollering, and it was just, that was the first time they played since 2003 during the Cotton Bowl days. So that was, 16 years later, they'll be able to, play that. Hopefully they can reunite that rivalry, do it again and again, because I think they realize that's a good fan base for both sides.
Yeah, they both have large followings. Because LSU is the big game in town for the state of Louisiana. Texas is the University of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we got a lot of other teams here. A&M's as big as they are, but they don't seem to have the following outside of the state of Texas that Texas does. But yeah, you look at the game, man. Texas averaged 12 yards a pass. LSU was throwing a little shorter, 8.5 yards. Excuse me, that was the other way around. LSU was throwing it longer. But LSU had a interception and Texas didn't. Both teams' rushing attempts were, 3.5 to 3.3 yards per carry. Both teams had 6 penalties. Time of possession was in Texas's favor by about 7 minutes. The third down efficiency was pretty close. Texas went for it 3 different times on 4th down and only converted once. But big game, big atmosphere. It's kind of, you want to see those kind of games early in the season, and you don't see a lot of teams go out and try to schedule big games like that out of conference.
And there's been like that the last 2 weeks in college football in general, a lot of marquee games that either are way early, like we're going to talk later on about Clemson and A&M,
Yeah, that was a big one. You don't see a lot of SEC teams scheduling big teams out of the conference.
Right.
And, they only play 8 conference games, so, their out-of-conference opponents are not that strong, even though they try to tell everybody they are. They're really not.
So what's the next game you want to talk about?
Well, the next one, I was thinking a little bit about, since you said Texas. Let's look at Mac Brown's return back to North Carolina. They had Miami come to town and amidst bad weather. Mike, what did you think about that game?
Man, it was a sloppy weather because of the hurricane conditions that they had. It wasn't a high-scoring game, but, North Carolina pulling it out 28-25. Mac Brown 2-0 at North Carolina. Miami 0-2 for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
This game was not much really on the offensive side. It was just a lot of running. They both gave up passing. They gave up.
Both had almost 300 yards passing.
Yeah.
Right?
And they also have 4 sacks apiece. For Mac Brown to turn that football team around, for the second, that quick to win. Now they play Friday at Wake Forest on Friday the 13th. So will you be able to make it 3-0? We can just wait and see.
But Miami they moved the ball well. They rushed the ball for 179 yards. To North Carolina only rushed it for 97. Miami was 4.8 yards per carry. North Carolina was only 2.7. But the difference was Miami had 7 penalties, and North Carolina only had 1. And then Howell, he was 16-24 for 274 yards, 2 touchdowns. Miami's quarterback, Jaron Williams, didn't play bad. 30 of 39 for 309 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
DJ Dallas rushed, 14 carries for 107 yards. He was averaging 7.6 yards a carry.
Cameron Harris, 10 rushes for 60 yards, so he was averaging 6 yards plus a touchdown.
But, it came down to when Sam Howell hit Daz Newsome with 101 left on that 10-yard touchdown pass that sealed the game. I mean, it was sloppy. But it's going to be interesting to see if Matt can return to his former glory before he went to Texas, because he had North Carolina pretty much in their glory years under him. I mean, he really did a good job. His coaching style, his recruiting really played well in that area. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can get back in there and see if there's more than just one team in the ACC.
Right. So what's the last game you want to talk about today, Jim?
You know what the last game's going to be. It's going to be Clemson and Texas A&M. Yeah, the last game we want to talk about from this past week was Texas A&M versus Clemson. That was it was kind of a letdown.
Yeah, it was at an odd time of day. I was kind of hoping it was going to be a Saturday night game, but I think either the game was too soon or what, because Texas A&M was just not there. For as much hype as Texas A&M has had, only scoring 10 points. I mean, of course, Clemson, number one ranked team.
17 straight wins.
Yeah, only scored 24 points. So
yeah, but they held Texas A&M to 92 total yards in the first half. I mean, yeah.
It was pretty sad for a Longhorn. I mean, for an A&M fan,
I mean, they had that field goal, and then they didn't really score a touchdown till the last minute of the game. I mean, and they were calling timeouts and everything to try to get that. I'm like, what, just to look better on paper? I mean, you got throttled.
I mean, how do you think the Clemson quarterback did during that game? Do you think he...
They didn't need him to do it. They were so balanced. They had 11 first downs rushing and 11 first downs passing. And then the rest of the first downs were via penalties. But A&M, talking about penalties, A&M had 9 penalties for 85 yards.
That can break your game right there. That ain't good.
Nope. And then, they're shooting yourself in the foot. And then Clemson only had 4 penalties. Mond, threw 42 times, 24 completions, only 236 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Lawrence threw 35 times, 24 completions, 268 yards, 1 TD, 1 pick. But truthfully, I thought Kellen Mond would be better by this point in time. The kid's he's been starting for 3 years, and he's just
kind of spinning around.
He's just not progressed. And we were talking when we did our preview show. We were, I forget where I had Texas A&M ranked. I think I had them boys.
I had them at number 11th.
You had them at 11?
Uh-huh.
I had them at 17. And they still could be there. They could still finish up there. But, man, just the ineptitude. Because, all the talk coming into this year was how much better they were going to be than last year's team. And they just didn't show anything.
Everyone I was hearing A&M's so good. A&M's going to be this. And I was like, so I watched the game and I was like, I haven't seen it.
But a lot of that has to do with Clemson too.
Right.
I mean, those guys have been stacking, top 5 recruiting classes on top of each other for years now. I mean, they lose, 3 or 4 guys off their defensive line to the NFL. Well, they just bring 3 or 4 more guys that are going to go.
They reload.
Yeah.
And the next game for Clemson, now I know it'll be a good one when they go against Alabama later on in November.
If they meet, no, not November. They don't. Clemson doesn't play another ranked team.
Wow.
Rest of the year. Unless one of those teams like we were talking about earlier, maybe North Carolina or somebody manages to make it up. But as of right now, there's no ranked teams on their schedule. I mean, it's a cakewalk to the Final Four for those boys.
And who do you think? And you still have them? Who do you have them winning? Do you still
no,
have
I don't. You got to tell me who's going to be there at the end. But like I said, they've got 17 straight wins. So I'm going to keep putting them number 1 until somebody proves me wrong, until somebody knocks them off. But, man, that was just a real letdown because there was so much buildup for that game, because last year's game was so close at Texas A&M and, all the propaganda coming out of College Station, how this was even better team. And to go out there and really only put up 3 points in the competitive phase of the game. And you know, the game started off, it was lackluster on both sides because they didn't score in the first quarter, neither team. And then A&M finally kicked a field goal, then the scoring started.